Hello and welcome. Here is Eugene Bogristov speaking, and today, as I promised, we make a short episode on the discrete choice experiments and the theory behind them. And there are not so many things you have to know. The first of all, it is that you are just comparing two or more products with each other in order to find out which of the attributes are preferable over the other attributes. And let's make it simple. We have the discrete choice experiment, and I would like to give you a simple example. Which of these two cars would you prefer? Just decide for yourself, write down your answer, and select a car. When I asked the same question to participants of a conference, AMSIS, America's Conference on Information System, then mostly people selected the black car, just because black seems more classic, and probably most people, I think about 95% of participants, wanted to have the black car. Okay, now let's think again. I'm going to give you another option. Which of these two cars would you prefer? And now you have additional information. You have the power of the engine, and after I made this correction and asked people which of these two cars would they prefer, the preferences have changed because more people wanted to have the yellow car because it was more powerful. This conference ran in Mexico, and you know that having power on the autobahn in Mexico is a good idea, so probably the yellow car would be more preferable. Okay, I said to the participants of this seminar, what if I give you the additional task? Which of these two cars would you prefer? And again, the yellow car was more preferable than the black car because in the US, in the North America and the South America, you prefer cars with automatic gear change. In Europe, you would probably go for a mechanic gear change. But anyway, in Mexico, when I ran this experiment, people would like to have the yellow car. And then finally, I gave additional task, or I ask them again to select one of these two cars, knowing something more. For example, that one of the cars has an air conditioner. And again, everybody wanted to have the yellow car because air conditioner in Mexico by the heat is very important. So what we learn from this thought experiment is that people have preferences, and these preferences are biased or changed depending on what kind of attributes an object has. In our event, we talk about the car as an object, and as you see, more powerful engine, automatic gear change, and air conditioner has changed the preference with regard to the car, to the color. Theoretically, if I make sufficient number of comparisons, I can find out what is the value of the color. I'll give you another example. Which of these two cars would you prefer? And I know that most of you would prefer the black car. And here is the price. If the price is equal, most people go for a black car. Okay, so what if price changes? And in this event, black car becomes more expensive than the yellow car, and I think some of you would change your preference toward a yellow car. Okay, let's make another comparison, and now we have more than 1,000 euro difference. It is more than 10% of the price of this car, and probably most of you would go for the yellow car just because the difference in price is too high. So if I make sufficient number of comparisons, then I can find out after which price you start preferring the yellow car. And it means that I can calculate the value of the color. And it can happen that the value of the color will be about 500, 600 euros. So next time if you want to sell a car and you would like to offer it, you have to take care of the price. So if you are offering the yellow car, then probably you should go lower with the price in at least 500 euros. This is just an imaginary example. What we know about the discrete choice experiment that it is a methodology which allows for the evaluation of multi-attribute products, programs, or services. In our case, we talk about the car. And this method allows for the estimation of the participants' preferences concerning tested attributes. And in our event, we talk about 4 attributes. We talk about the color of the car, about the power of engine, having air conditioner or not, and the fourth one, I think it was the power of the engine. A discrete choice experiment can shed light on how individuals value attributes. It can happen and somebody would still prefer the yellow car even though it costs 1,000 euro less than even though it costs the same or more than the black car. So it is individual, but if you run an analysis on a large sample, you can have the average preferences of your audience. And a discrete choice experiment is conducted under the assumption that participants tend to maximize their utility. In this regard, we have two theories which support the discrete choice experiment. The first one is the Lancaster's characteristic theory from 1991, and the second one is the random utility theory. In the events of the first theory, we talk about the selection of certain goods and that it is dictated or it is influenced by the characteristics fitting the individual's demands. For example, if you have all the other stuff in yellow, probably you would also prefer the yellow car because it is of value for you. Maybe you love the color, maybe you have other attributes which are of yellow, like I say, new yellow coats and new yellow tires and so on. And this would make your preferences, this would support your preferences with regard to yellow color of the car. The second theory postulates that the selection decision is made based on the highest utility expectation by the decision maker. So you have some expectations, for example, how you will be perceived in this car. If you are a creative person, if you would like to produce a wow effect on the audience, maybe a yellow car would be of more value for you than a black car. If you prefer the classics, if you would like to have an car which you can park, which is not often seen by the police officers and so on, you would go for a black car. As long as the utility of an alternative product appears higher, the individuals select the alternative. So we just assume that if I give you this different examples, that you will just make each time a new decision and you would not think about your previous decisions. You just make a new decision each time you see different options which you have to compare. What is a discrete choice experiment good for? And it is good for some reasons. It is a hypothetical product selection, and if you as a researcher aim at revealing the participants' preferences concerning certain features, it could be good. So you would like to see which of the features of the same product would play a high role. For example, the color of a bottle of yogurt or something like this. And if you include additional variables such as price or efficacy or efficiency or whatever scalable variable you would like to have, for example, time spent on something, this allows you, first of all, to see the value and the importance of the variable. For example, you can see that the color probably starts playing a role if the difference between the two cars increases 500 euro or more. And the second, with a simple formula, you have an option to calculate the willingness to trade something against something. In our event, we talk about the car, so it is willingness to pay. How much are you willing to pay for a yellow color? How much are you willing to pay for the black color of your car? And if you have this variable, if you have the scalable variable, you can always add it to your calculations and say not only that black color is preferable over the yellow one, but if you would like to have the yellow one to become also popular, you have to offer a price reduction of, let's say, 10% of the final price of the product. Here are some examples. The first one, it is the study which I ran with my colleague, Dr. Nadine Osten. We looked at the indirect costs of digitization and we looked at different costs. So we have three lines here. The first one were the organizational costs. Then we had the personal or HR related costs, and then we had the third party's cost. Because each time you make a digitization product, it can have impact on your partners. For example, you may lack compatibility of the software because after you introduce your solution, it can be not compatible with those used by the partner. As our scalable variable, we took the variable efficiency and was efficiency of process optimization. So if you optimize your process, how much of efficiency gain will you achieve? And we had these two options. It was project A and project B, and you see they have different indirect costs of digitization and also propose you different efficiency enhancement. And theoretically, if you make a lot of comparisons, you can see which of the indirect costs is of more importance than the other. And you can also calculate in how much should you offer of additional efficiency if you would like to have an undesired indirect cost of digitization. And now I have some example for you how you develop your own discrete choice experiment. And first, you have to start with a research question, and this research question has to be very specific. It can be the question on the comparative nature which of the two options is preferable, for example, which colors, which approach to sustainable development goals, or which location is of more preference for your visitors, for your clients. And you can also ask a question about the willingness to trade efficiency, efficacy, or price against the attributes which you have. If you have this question, you have to find your object, what exactly you would like to select. In my example, at the beginning of this lecture, I showed you two cars, so my object was a car, but it can be any product or any service. The attributes, you have to select them very carefully. I selected the 4 of them. So I had the color, I had the engine power, I had the age of, I didn't have the age of the car, but it would be a great idea if you introduce the used car. And you can also select other attributes. Here you have to be very careful that the attributes have to be of more or less the same value. So it shouldn't be like color compared to engine only, but the age. So these 3 seem to be important for those who try to buy a new car or who try to buy a used car. And we have, for each attributes, we have different levels, and the levels for color would be, for example, blue, red, and black. And here again, you have to be very careful with regard to levels. If you take one level which is definitely preferred or which is definitely not preferred, let's say the pink or yellow, this is the reason why I selected this, let's say ugly yellow color, is that nobody would like to have it. So it's easy to run an experiment, a thought experiment with you. If you run the real experiment and you take one of the items which is definitely preferable or definitely not preferable, then of course you will have the great level of significance because nobody would like to have it, and compared to other levels it will be the less or most preferred level. But again, it is in this experiment, in the discrete choice experiment, it's not about the level of significance, it is about the odds. What are the chances that you prefer one option over the other? The number is also very important, so you can have 12 different colors or you can have only 2 different colors. The more levels you have, the higher number of experiments you have to run, because if you want to make a conclusion about a specific level, and if you have many of them, you have to find all different combinations of this level together. So if you have a lot of attributes with a lot of levels, then you also have to run a lot of comparisons. And usually I recommend to have about 4 to 5 attributes, and for each to have 3 to 5 levels. It depends on the level, depends on the attribute, and depends on your sample size. If you have the perfect access to a very large sample size, you can take really a large number of attributes. Then you combine all these attributes, propose different products to select. I offered you 2 products to select from, but you can offer even more products if you want to. And then people have to select them, and the combination should be different. So it should be black color with the old car and black color with young or freshly made car. You have to have different powers of engines, and the more combinations you have, the higher is the preciseness of the selection. You will definitely know what people prefer over something else. Then you collect your data, and after you collected them, you can compare the options, you can find out what is more preferable, what is less preferable, and you can calculate the willingness to trade. I have already made some episodes on how you calculate all this stuff, and you can find them on my channel. Another example which I want to give you comes from one of the students of mine, and she wanted to investigate whether the female managers are disadvantaged in small and medium-sized enterprises in Tyrol. And it is funny because after she said that she has this research question, I tried to apply it to different research method, and here is the application for the discrete choice experiment. If you want to answer this question, we definitely know what is your object. It is a manager, and the manager can have different attributes. In our event, we're interested mainly in gender, but we know that not only gender has impact, also age, managerial experience, and skills would be the core attributes which have impact on the selection of those who decide whether to engage, whether to take this manager or not to take this manager. Then I propose the following levels. This is just the example. You usually have to go to literature and see what kind of attributes and levels they propose. For instance, in our experiment on the indirect costs of digitization, we developed all the attributes and all the levels based on literature. Sometimes it is a good idea to conduct an inductive approach, a qualitative approach, where you first start with interviews and you try to find out what are the key attributes which have impact on the decision with regard on hiring a manager. So this is my imaginary levels. It is maybe not so precise, but I think it is just for the sake of simplicity and the sake of a good example, having a good example. I have the gender, male, female, and diverse, age 35, 38, 41, 44, 47. Here you see that I try to make the precise step of 3 years, and I try to take not too young managers because it would be too suspicious if somebody with 18 years would have 5 years of experience, because this combination can also appear. That is why I decided to start with 35 and end with 47, because by 65, it is time of going to pension in Austria. That is why probably this 35 to 47 years is a good range which you can use. I took the managerial experience and I decided to take only 3 levels, 4 years, 4.5 years, and 5 years. I think having less than 2 years is questionable, because nobody would like to have a manager with so few years of experience. And if somebody has too many years of experience, this would be a dominating attribute. Everybody would decide to take a manager with a long experience due to his or her competence. Then I had the attribute skills, and I added only 3 skills, but it could be much more. I just took as example communication skills, leadership skills, and problem solving skills. And the salary for this item, I took more levels. I took 6 levels with a step of 2,000 euro, and it is a yearly salary of 70,000, 72, 74, 76, 78, and 80,000. Again, I wouldn't take a too big range, because if you see the manager who costs only 40,000 euro with 5 years of experience, and the other one who costs 100,000 euro with only 4 years of experience, then the price will play the key role. And I didn't want the price to bias the results. So I tried to take those attributes which were, or more or less, as to my honest opinion, value, and with the steps which were sufficiently to make a decision, but not to biasing the results of the research. And then I asked a question to my participants: whom of the following managers would you prefer for a job interview? I think if you ask the question, whom would you hire, is a kind of too responsible question. People would feel the level of responsibility and would be more hesitant to give an answer. But inviting for a job interview clearly indicates the preference, and still it is not related to a too high level of responsibility. That's why I think it is a good idea to ask this soft question and then to propose them with the 2 selection options. The first one, this is the randomly generated set Jane and Kyla. Both are female. One has 4 years experience. The second one has 5 years of experience. Then we have the top skill. The first one has leadership skills. The second one has communication skills. And the yearly salary is 76,000 euros compared to 72,000 euros by Kyla. And then you have to make your decision. And you have different ways how you create these combinations. You can do them manually. For this, we have the specific document which you can relate to. I think I referred to it in one of my other episodes. Or you can use the SDT, the self-development tool, for a conjoint analysis, which is freely available. It will just produce for you different combinations of different attributes and levels. And if you run a sufficient number of comparisons, then you can make a strong conclusion on what is preferable and whether the male or female managers are preferred, whether the female managers are preferred over the male managers. And you can see, for example, what role the experience plays, the managerial experience, what role different skills play, and what role the salary plays. Moreover, if you have this, you can calculate, for example, how much does having a female manager cost to you. Then you know that if it is a female manager, then the salary should be higher, should be lower. Or if you would like to have 2 managers, what should be the discount in salary in order that people start paying attention to this manager and would like to invite this person to an interview. The other real example, which I already referred to, was the social costs of digitization, and these were the levels and attributes which we derived from literature. You see that we took the 3 types of costs: the organizational costs, the human-related costs, and relational costs. And we also took the efficiency as our scalable variable because it wouldn't make too much sense to introduce the price. The reason is very simple. We didn't know whom we were going to ask. We sent randomly the link to this questionnaire to different groups on LinkedIn and Xing, and we asked people to participate in a study on digitization. And it could have happened that somebody were from the IBM and somebody were from a small, medium enterprise from Tyrol. And of course, those from IBM, if they see the price of 100,000 euro, it doesn't play a big role. They would go for this option. And those who are from small enterprise, they would already be hesitant if they have only 1,000 euro difference in two different projects. That is why we decided to take something neutral. In this event, it was the efficiency growth. Everybody has their own efficiency growth. By IBM, 10% efficiency growth is different than by a small medium enterprise, but more or less it is convertible, and those firms understand what exactly they want in which firm. And here are some results from our paper with Dr. Osten. And you see this is the analysis of organizational costs. We have one item we compare all other items against. This was the deceleration of business processes, and you see that excessive usage of company resources is definitely preferable. So if people see two solutions and one of them has as an indirect cost of digitization the deceleration of business processes and the other has as the indirect cost the excessive usage of company resources, people would go for the one with excessive usage of company resources. Nobody wanted to have deceleration of business processes. And you see that the results are significant, but again, significance is not the important thing. It is really about the expected B, which wouldn't have in this table. We have here marginal effects, the probability that one option is preferred over the other one. And you see in 25% cases, the option with excessive usage of company resources would be more preferable than the option with deceleration of business processes. What you also see here is the last column, willingness to trade efficiency, and we calculated based on this efficiency variable which we had in the calculation. And you see, for example, if you have the two options, deceleration of business processes and the excessive usage of company resources, if you want that people go for deceleration of business processes, you have to offer them additionally 2.79 of efficiency. Or again, if you don't want that people select the option with excessive usage of company resources, you have to reduce the efficiency by 2.79%. So this is the willingness to trade. How much are you willing to offer in order to have or not have an option? And the same you can see for the cost for adjustment of business processes. They are more preferable in at least 20% more often. They will be preferred if the two options occur. The first one is deceleration of business processes or baseline, and the second one is the cost of adjustment of business processes. And if you want that in this comparison people still go for a deceleration of business processes, you have to offer 2.22% of efficiency additional in order that people prefer this option over this option. And this is how you calculate your willingness to trade efficiency and how you interpret the results from your discrete choice experiment. What we have here, this is the graphical representation of what we had. It was the study made in German. That's why here's the German translation. These are the personal or HR related costs, and you have different values. And you see, for example, if this is the baseline, this is the increased efforts from the side of the employees. And on the other hand, you have the increased learning costs on the side of the employees. Then the learning costs are more preferred, almost about 30%. I think it were 28% more preferable than the higher level of efforts from the side of your employees. And this is how you're presented. And this gives you a nice overview of what you can do with a discrete choice experiment. If you have questions, feel free to post them in the comment section down below. If you have other ideas or if you need further videos, please let me know. Maybe I can make another recording for you. I hope it was helpful. Wish you good luck with your discrete choice experiments and with your research. Bye-bye.